of the people without whose leadership America would not be possible. 3 Virginians were singled out for special honor. George Washington, the father of our country, was called the sword of the Revolution. Patrick Henry was called the voice of the Revolution. And Thomas Jefferson was called the pen of the Revolution. Now, Thomas Jefferson was a shy and very sensitive man, could not lead with force of character as did Washington, nor with great oratory as did Henry. But he could lead with the clarity and the inspiration of his pen and with his personal example. At the age of 32, Jefferson was elected to the Second Continental Congress, which adopted the militia around Boston as the Continental Army and sent George Washington to be its commander-in-chief. 1776, Jefferson was put on a committee along with Benjamin Franklin and John Adams and others to draw up the Declaration of Independence. Now, Jefferson said that the Declaration of Independence was not designed to come up with new ideas or new principles, but it was intended to be an expression of the American mind. When it said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And the Declaration ends with a firm reliance upon the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now, these were not poor men. These were rich men who enjoyed ease in their daily living. But they believed that liberty was worth dying for. It was worth everything that they had. In 1776, Jefferson was placed on the House of Delegates in Virginia, served there for 3 years, and he served in a committee that was designed to redo all the laws for Virginia under its new constitution. His most famous statute was the Statute for Religious Freedom that he did in 1777, but was not passed until 1786. That statute was based on the truth that all men are created in the image of God, but are fallen and sinful creatures. In 1779, at the age of 36, Jefferson was elected the state's second governor, and it was, ironically, an unmitigated disaster, mostly because it was his own fault. He was always afraid of a strong executive and of a standing army, so he had helped put that in the Constitution. When Benedict Arnold came flooding, brought soldiers, British soldiers, into Virginia, he fled for his life. In 1784 to 1789, he was a minister to France for our new government. And then in 1790, he came back to America to serve as the Secretary of State under George Washington. Now, he had helped, at the beginning of the French Revolution, he had helped Lafayette write the Declaration of the Rights of Man. And he resigned as Secretary of State in 1793 because George Washington maintained U.S. neutrality in that revolution, and he felt that was a betrayal of our French allies. In 1797, he became the vice president under John Adams, and then in one of the most angry elections in history, he was elected president in 1801. Finally resulted in the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, and was able to put into practice some of his own ideals. In 1801, he pardoned everyone who had been convicted under the Sedition Acts. He also, in another irony, sent the Navy that John Adams and the Federalists had built because of the XYZ affair over to the Mediterranean to combat Islamic terror in the First Barbary Pirate War. He doubled the size of the United States with a $15 million purchase from Napoleon of Louisiana, and then he led Congress to issue and he signed into law the January 1st, 1808 slave non-importation law. He was a lifelong abolitionist, and this was the first date in which the Constitution allowed any laws against slavery, and it ended bringing Africans over to America to be slaves. But he also led in his personal life. Every Sunday he attended worship in one of the largest worship services in America, held in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And he said he did that as an example because righteousness exalts the nation. And then in one of the sweetest ironies of history, on July the 4th of 1826, on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson died at the age of 83. And later that afternoon, his final remaining living signer, John Adams, died at the age of 90. Jefferson wanted on his tombstone that he was the author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia of Religious Freedom, and the father of the University of Virginia.